Hey guys, welcome to Pressplay. On today's episode, I have Dubverse and Anuja Dhawan, co-founder of Dubverse, on the podcast. Dubverse is an AI-powered dubbing and video translation platform that is making content truly multilingual at scale. Welcome, Anuja.
Thanks a lot, Vineet. Happy to be here.
And so let's start and let's dive straight in. Why don't you share with the viewers a little bit about yourself and Dubverse and what you guys are building?
Sure, would love to. Hey everybody, Anuja this side. Been in the SaaS ecosystem for over a decade and been at Dubverse for over 3 years now. We primarily are a hardware Gen AI deep tech company based out of India, working out of India for the globe. We started way before the wave of AI that we see right now. We are started up in 2021. It's two of us, Varshul, who's the technical co-founder, and myself. I look at the business and the operation side. A little more on me. I was with Freshworks before this, so I was doing B2B SaaS for them for North India market. Had a great stint, but yeah, I think there was that innate feeling of flipping the table and being on the other side. And I think with my co-founder, we've been friends for over 8 years when we started this. So we were working together in the previous company. It just felt like the right time, and we jumped into it. The idea about Dubverse primarily started during the time of COVID, right? Everybody was stuck at home, and education primarily had to be digitized. Now, for a country like India, how do we do that, right? Where in every 100 kilometers, the language people speak change, the dialect changes. So, how does digitization for a country so vast happens? Of course, manually it's not possible from a resources standpoint. So that's where Varshul had already been dabbling with a few AI ideas, and this one just made sense in terms of where we were from a market landscape standpoint as well. So video dubbing, video translation into multiple languages with the power of AI is the base idea where we started from, wherein there is so much content on education that's available on YouTube for free, paid, however that is, but that's still restricted by the language it is created in. So that was the core idea, that how do we break that language barrier on the internet, how do we make it more accessible to the next 500 million people coming onto the internet because of advent of geo, internet becoming more accessible. So that's where we started.
Got it. Nice. And just double clicking on Dubverse, the product,
So
without giving too much away on the technology, uh, tell us some more about what does the product do? What problems does it solve?
sure. No, happy to talk about technology as well. We are a deep tech company, so happy to sort of dig deeper in terms of what we've learned over the years. But from a use case standpoint, what we primarily solve is the first one is video dubbing. That if you have a video, this works brilliantly well for information-based video, knowledge-based video, educational videos across. That you have a video, you input that, and as an output, you get a translated video in a different language, where visually everything remains the same, but the audio is replaced with a different language altogether. So of course, whatever comes out with AI is not 100% ready to publish. Sometimes depending on brand nuances, noun, active, passive, those are some of the issues that we see when we move from one language to another language. So we have a full-fledged studio editor available within the web application, where you can do all of those changes and make your video ready to publish. The second use case while working on this, we realized is that sometimes some of the countries globally, some of them prefer dubbing and audio dubbing, some of them prefer subtitle translation, that they don't want audio to be replaced, but they're okay with adding a different language of subtitle as well. So this very organically came from the market, that I don't want to change my audio, but I want to add a different language subtitle. So that's the second use case, where if you have a video in any language, you can create subtitles in any language. So this again enables you to increase the reach of the video that you've created, reach out to more people, either on YouTube, your own website. A lot of people who sell courses on Udemy, Coursera, Class Plus are also people who use us very extensively for both of these. The third use case that we solve is that also in a certain way came as a demand from the audience, that I have a script and I want to create an audio out of it. I don't have a studio, I don't have my voice. So how do I enable the base creation of my audio as well? So that's the third aspect that we solve, text to speech, when you input any script and you get a voiceover out of it. So these are the use cases. But if I talk little more about the technology aspect that we've built in-house, is primarily on the third use case, wherein the AI voices that we interact with still sound robotic or do not have the right intonation in them. So that's the problem statement that we have gone way deeper from a technology standpoint, where now we have our own foundational model in speech, which is a billion parameter large, trained on more than 50,000 hours of data, which we've sort of developed over the last 3 years. And the idea here is that whatever is happening from a speech standpoint as well in the West is primarily for English or more Western languages. How do we do that for Indian languages, which are low resource languages? The data does not exist. Hindi, for an example, is a much more complicated language as compared to English. So all of those nuances is where we are working at a very deep tech level and trying to make these speakers sound more like a human.
Wow. So that's a lot of things that you unpack with the platform. So you have dubbing and you have subtitling. If I just broadly say that within the ecosystem of language, and and then obviously the use cases and the end customers could be media, entertainment, or enterprise, or education, or marketing. Um, what is bigger? Like what in terms of the pie is dubbing, uh, translation, subtitling? What does the pie look like today
For us or for the market?
for you and then the market?
Sure. So I would say how the market is adopting AI is very horizontal, right? If you look at a global standpoint. So from a platform standpoint, again, it's been live for over 2.5 years, and we have crossed more than 2 million users who have tried our technology or tried the platform. So what we see is when we get more global users, more from US or Europe, they are more interested on dubbing, that they want to translate the audio as well into different languages. But when we see India, very surprisingly, people are more interested in subtitles. That they want to add multilingual subtitles, or usually what's happening is that people are creating their content in Hindi or vernacular languages, and they want to add English subtitle on top of it, because YouTube accepts English subtitles. English subtitles are more acceptable from a SEO standpoint, discoverability standpoint. So India, I would say, is little more subtitle heavy, but whereas globally, dubbing is something that's been more widely adopted.
And is India doing more more interested in subtitling because of the cost of dubbing? Is that a factor? Or
Yeah,
no,
that
not
is that.
really.
No, that could be right, because of course subtitle is cheaper, dubbing is costlier as compared to subtitle. So yeah, that's also a point, of course.
Got it, got it. And then, I must ask the question. I mean, you've spoken about the platform and the tech, but in terms of the distribution channels, the viewers will be quite excited to learn that you guys also partnered, or your name was on the credits of a Netflix show.
Yes.
You want to talk about that as to what's
Yeah.
happening with media?
100%. So what I spoke about is how we sort of started and what we sort of set up initially. But in the last 6 months, I would say the tables are really turning, where enterprise really want to adopt to all of this, and how people where the production value is higher, which is primarily the M&E, media and entertainment, are trying to see how can they adopt to it. So we were able to sort of hop onto a project, IC814, where one of the voice is powered by our technology, and we have our names in the Netflix in under the credits for additional dubbing, because that is a voice that did not exist, and we were able to create with our own technology in house.
Wow. So hold on. So hold that thought. So basically, there's a Netflix show IC814, and there is a character on that show whose voice has been created artificial. So it's artificial voice,
Yes, it's an artificial voice.
which has been created by you guys.
Yes, so it's for a famous personality who's no more. So we were able to recreate his voice using AI.
Wow. That's unbelievable. Because a lot of people know that you guys did this for Netflix, but they don't know exactly what you did and that entire journey.
Yeah.
You wanna share some more details on that? Can you share some more details on that as to what was the journey like?
Yeah, so basically, it happened through one of the production houses. That's what I can share. They were working on this, and they really wanted to add this character's voice because it was important for the whole plot to sort of come together. Where this one phone call plays a very important role, and they did not have that voice. So obviously, earlier they would just name it that this person spoke this, and somebody else would say it. But with AI, those are the possibilities from an experience standpoint that we are able to become true now. That was not possible earlier. So that's what we were able to do and recreate that. And yeah, I think a lot of excitement within the team and the extended supporters that we were able to crack that.
Awesome. And Anuja, what are your thoughts on this? So just to spend some time on this M&E use case, and we'll go into the other use cases also in a minute. But on the M&E use case, do you think more and more studios and platforms will look at AI generated voice? Is the technology there in terms of the experience and the listening up? For example, you said that AI voice can sound robotic. How far have we come now?
Very far, Vineet, very far. And I think for M&E specifically and all industries, I would say that AI, how it's being developed is at a very fundamental layer. So ignoring it, I would say, is not something that an industry or an industry leader primarily can see. And if we'll again see the example of Hollywood, I think there's already movies being produced end to end, which are where AI is involved, from visual to SFX, VFX, SFX, and audio as well. So English, I would say, is more or less where the differentiation is close to impossible. That if it's a AI generated voice or a human. And when I say the speakers do not sound good, that's exactly the problem that we are trying to attack. And in Hindi, I can say very confidently that the voices have become so emotive that it's really difficult to differentiate in terms of who's speaking, what is being said. And same is for voice cloning as well, right? We can recreate somebody's voice and make them speak something. It of course comes with its own risks as well involved. I like to mention this when I talk about voice cloning, so
Yeah,
that
of course.
everybody's aware that we are thinking on these lines as well, that how do we sort of do not give it out in open to everybody, but sort of guardrail it with the right legal and ethical policies that we have in place. But from a technology standpoint, I think what is happening and what we see on a daily basis is mind blowing.
Wow, that's insane. And you guys are pitching already to content studios in the West?
So yes, West as well and India as well. So West, of course, is more English focused. There are some larger Asian players which are trying to tackle more Asian languages as well. So I would say that's what our first priority is. But of course, a lot is happening in the Hollywood and in the West, and we're already sort of have our inroads opened up there as well, along with India.
Nice. Awesome. And let's throw this question in. So, what's your experience? What's your fundraising journey been? One, and second is, where are you guys at in your life cycle? How many rounds have you gone through of fundraising, and how do you see the investor sentiment towards uh, the voice slash subtitling slash dubbing space coupled with AI? What's the sentiment?
Sure. Been doing a startup for 3 years now, so I think now the opinions are becoming very strong. Earlier, I would say we were still dabbling in terms of what is to be done, but yeah, I have some thoughts there primarily. So we are backed by Kalari Capital. We did our first round of funding in mid of 2022. We started 2021. We did it in mid of 2022. Kalari backed us, and along with Kalari, we made sure that we got the right sort of angels as well. I think. In a fundraising journey, if founders are listening to this, I think angels play a very big operator role, because of course Kalari is great, they support, they obviously had the larger check coming in, and it's a great name to be associated with. But operator level mindset that comes with angels has its own benefits. So we were able to get a lot of ex-founders, and primarily in the content space. So Stage, Vinay and Shashank are on our cap table. Then Sairi from Shidos is also sort of been a cheerleader for us. Supriya from Show Stocks as well. So we got the right set of people in a certain way who'd build companies around content space. That also enabled a lot. And of course, Kalari has been a great partner for over 2.5 years now. So that relationship goes well. I think from a current journey standpoint, we also have IIT Mandi because again we do a lot of deep tech research work in house. So IIT Mandi is also where we have associated with from a financial aspect as well. But of course, their interactions are more on the research and how we are building this technology in house, and that's been a great support from a academia, access to the lab, access to the GPUs as well. So that's also happened, and we are now trying to become a part of this India AI mission that's been launched because it's important, and that's exactly what we have always believed. In the last 1 year, I would say we were questioned a lot that why are you building a foundational model? What is the need? Somebody else will do it. How can you do from India? So on and so forth. But I think now it is becoming clearer that why is that required, right? Because you cannot always operate on somebody else's model.
Awesome, awesome. Let's spend some time on that. Good points that you raised about the India AI mission, which is super exciting. Obviously, post DeepSeek, that
Yeah.
entire journey has taken off. Uh, so, you want to share with us what you guys are doing with IIT Mandi and how the academia piece is coming together?
Sure. So, what has happened in India is that they've launched a lot of these iHubs across these larger institutes where they are not only empowered with academia but financial support as well, that they can forward to the right set of people in the market and how you commercialize as well. So that's how we got associated with them. It was a qualification in a certain way that we had to showcase that what tech capabilities we have, what is it that we are doing in house. We worked with one of the professors very closely, and once all of that evaluation was done, we moved on to the financial aspect as well. So what we get from them, like I said, is access to lab, that they have set up a great lab within the IIT Mandi campus that we can access. So that gives us a lot of resources. They also have some GPU support, which is very important for any AI company, and some
Yeah.
market access is also what they are trying to unlock for us. So it's a holistic investor relationship is what I would say, and they are of course empowered by the Indian government, so that enables us more from a technology standpoint.
Great. And the India AI mission. So, when you say you became part of the India AI mission, what does that entail?
Sure. So I said we are trying to be a part of it,
Or
but
trying to be?
what? Yes, yes, yes. So what has happened in India AI mission is some 15,000 crore have been allocated to it already, which is primarily to provide GPU infrastructure in the country, and of course aid financially as well to startups of how we can use it. So we are in touch with the right team, and current last month only they had put out a proposal for asking for proposal from startups, whoever is building a foundational model. So we've also put down our application because we are the ones building it in speech. So looking forward how we can get associated and make use of the allocated resources.
Wow, super, super exciting. And I think, Anuja, you guys are probably, I don't know, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know of anyone else uh, in India who's building a foundational model for speech.
Foundational, yes, exactly. So people are building Sarvam, Krityam are of course building a lot of models, foundational models, but those are more on the text side, which are
Right.
again more large scale, requires more and more amount of resources. But we are primarily one of the only, I would also say, of few building it out of India for speech primarily and Indian languages.
Wow, that's super. Uh, Kudos to you guys. Wishing you the best of luck with the India AI mission.
Thanks.
And I think, I have to be honest, I have not checked out the speech capabilities of DeepSeek, for example, but I know the open AI universe of Whisper and so on and so forth, who are there. And I think all these guys in the West struggle with figuring out Indian languages when it comes to speech. Text they might be there, but when it comes to speech, when you introduce dialects, they tend
Correct.
to struggle. They tend to struggle, right? So,
Yeah.
and India, what? There are 42 mainstream languages in India alone.
Yeah.
So, so that leads me to the next question. How do you, how many languages do you work with right now?
Sure. So on our own model, we have about 15 Indian languages that those are supported. But
Okay,
of course, the major one that we are working on is Hindi, because the
right.
nuances are so deep that you need to go very deep on one language. And once that recipe is created in a certain way for one language, then replicating the second and the fifth and the 15th, it becomes much easier. So the prime focus has been on Hindi and the 12 main languages, but we also have been able to produce some of the obscure languages like Odia and Assamese. These are languages where we have our speakers available for over
Wow.
a year now, whereas none of these platforms for that matter are able to offer that. And again, that comes from our mission in terms of how do we break that language barrier. We go back to day one where we started, why we started, how do we do that, and hence we've tried incorporating wherever possible whatever languages that we can add.
Wow, that's. I mean, I'm sure it's like a task to figure out and pick a language, right? How do you choose? So, for example, I'm associated with a couple of other AI companies
So
in India as an investor and otherwise, and it's very tempting for them to look at, let's say, a Spanish uh, or a French, because they're like, okay, if I build this in India, I'll get 4x or 3x more. Sure, the number of customers might be lower. India, you'll get volume. How do you decide? How does Dubverse decide?
sure, I think that's a battle everybody fights when you sort of set out to build for India, and then on the journey you realize, oh, I can get 5x the revenue for the same amount of energy that I put in if I go to a different country. I would say we also dabble with it a lot, but like I said, so what how we did it was. See, both are important for me to survive today. To me, for me to keep the lights on today is very important. But what is my larger mission also is something which is very important. I think as a founder, I really realized that how one zooms in on today and zooms out on 5 years is a superpower that you develop only by executing. So I think that's how we
Yeah,
do it. So when we zoom in, when we talk about today of how we increase revenue, we also do a lot of global stuff. We have a lot of global languages listed, where we take a more platform level approach, right? We don't have to develop all 200, 500 languages that exist in the world. We can use whatever is available off the shelf if it is able to sustain us as today. So that's the approach that we take. But when we zoom out and we say what is it that we've set out to build, what is the 5 year plan that's looking like, then we are very sure that we want to do it for Indian languages at a very deeper level and make all of these speakers sound like human. So that's, I would say, that's how we dabble with this as well.
yeah. Wow, exciting, exciting. Uh, and then I must ask you this because as a consumer, for example, so I was at this conference in Dubai called Step, and at Step they spoke about the host of one of the panels said that when she is listening to someone or watching a scene, she is very cognizant of whether this scene or this character or this voice is AI generated. And sometimes, as a consumer, your perception may sway either ways, right? So, for example, in the West, in India, they're experimenting with marketing material and ad creatives being used, being created using AI, the visuals, I'm sure even voice.
Yeah.
And when you see it as a consumer, you might think, yeah, it's not the same fun. It should have been more authentic, or it could be the other way where you're like, okay, boss, this is it's AI. Wow, like it's
Hmm.
phenomenal. What is your feedback from customers, from enterprises who are using you guys?
Sure. So, two ways I think how we look at it. One is that whenever a change happens and a change of the scale that we are seeing with AI, right? There are two type of people. One are who are very excited about the change. They want to try everything that's available and they want to just jump into it, right? So those are early adopters. Is how we sort of look in the graph of any technology evolution, right? So those are the people who support us in the early journey and are able to push the envelope to sort of keep working on it. Uh, but until other mass, right, which is resistant to the change that's happening, which is saying no, I do not want this. When they start to convert is actually when I think the right PMF for the whole industry will happen. And right now also what happens, right, interesting example here is that if we do a voiceover with a human, people are okay with it. But if we do it the same thing with AI, people are like, नहीं इसमें ये गलत है, इसमें वो गलत है, because humans also make mistakes, right? Humans are no perfect,
Yeah.
but when it comes to
Right.
AI, the people's expectation is that this has to be like a banger 10 on 10. It cannot be a 9.5 as well. So we've run this experiment actually multiple times, and that's the best feedback that we get. That we play an audio and we don't tell them if it's AI or not. And if somebody is saying, is this AI or human? I think that answers everything. That
Yeah. Yeah.
even if it is not 100%, but they would accept it, because even humans are not perfect. So I think when the masses will start, I think that will happen, of course. And for some of the industries, we are seeing happen it at a much faster pace. Some of the industries want to sort of stick by to more traditional routes, but I think that will break. We will cross that chasm, and we will get to the majority very very soon, is where how I look at it.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. I think the adoption rates are improving, but there was a Ernst and Young report that said that the on the Gen AI side of things, sure, everyone uses ChatGPT as a as let's say professionals, but the enterprise use of Gen AI is still not there. Uh, the way you guys look at competition, right? In India or outside India, there's a lot of, I think the way you guys sound to be different compared to some of the other dubbing or subtitling platforms that claim to use AI. They tend to use something from an open AI or from anywhere else, and they put a wrapper around it, right? And then they train that model, which is their little micro space within the overall gamut, and they call it a company. I think what you guys are doing different is creating a foundational model of your own. I think it's important to emphasize that. Uh, so on that note, how do you see competition?
I think again, from a new industry standpoint, I think nothing is competition. Everybody is just trying to push the envelope to get more masses to adopt it. Right? That competition, I think right now the pie is so big that no company, like enough of the ones that exist, and even ones those are coming up, can very easily make a good space for them. So I think we look. I think this was a part of our first deck as well, that we look very very positively at the competition, because the pie was only so small. And right now as well, looking at with whatever is happening, the pie is still so small. And to the fact that you mentioned, right, and that's the zoom in zoom out conversation again, that as of today, even if we have to become a rapper to sort of keep things moving, we did that when we started, because we were unsure what is the problem that we have to solve. While doing dubbing, we realized that until my output speaker is immersive enough, people are not going to engage with the output that we've produced. So we narrowed down that for dubbing pie to increase, the audio needs to become better, and we sort of started working on it, doing things so on and so forth, and we are very deep into it. But of course with AI, what has also happened, that became creating a software has become so simple, right, that just two people sitting in a room can very easily do it. So
Yeah,
hence, wrapper versus foundational model theory is still not clear to the VC world, is how I would say. To us it's been
yeah.
very clear since day one of how we want to do this, and how does this become a large outcome for everybody who's involved, and create that impact from a country standpoint.
Right, right. I mean, the way I look at it, it's at the end of the day, the business has to talk for itself. So if a
Correct.
rapper company is scaling to $2-3 million ARR in super quick time, rapper or not, it's a good bet because there's growth. So I think that's the way most of the smarter investors are looking at investments, is whether the numbers check out.
Yeah.
And let me, so that's a good segue to this point, and I would love you to hear your opinion. It's because you've been building this for the last 3.5 years. A
Yeah.
lot of talk about AI killing SaaS, right? Or the whole SaaS world getting totally disrupted by AI. So
Hmm.
what is your take? I mean, you guys are technically a SaaS platform selling AI.
Yes. So if we look at the SaaS world also, right? So B2C is different and B2B is very different. In B2B, what is happening is that you solve for a specific workflow, you solve for a problem. So is SaaS dead? I don't 100% agree to that, because it really solves for a lot of business problems, communication problems, so on and so forth. But if you're a SaaS today and you don't start to add AI, then another SaaS platform is going to take over because they've added AI. Right, so a lot of these redundant tasks can become much better. Like, for an example, I was at Freshwork for the longest time. So Freshdesk is one tool where a lot of history and a lot of customer data exists. Right now what was happening was that somebody had to go through everything and then come up with an answer. That AI can do very brilliantly well and save a lot of time for everybody. So if you don't add that feature, AI feature, into your SaaS, then you are dead. If you just want to remain a feature set of feature list, then you can't sort of exist in the longer term. But if you add AI to your SaaS, I think businesses will still need it. Businesses will still have problem because of the scale and the complexity that they operate at. But who moves faster, I think, is the differentiation that's going to come in the SaaS world.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I agree that it's at the end of the day, the pace of change is so fast
Correct.
that and again, there is a market for a lot of different types of companies. Um, a lot of the guys are my people who I talk to in the investment world are concerned that Chat GPT might come up with a feature which might overnight kill, like, let's say, 50 companies, because features that you thought were innovation one day suddenly
Yeah.
become so common as part of existing workflows. But then I would caveat that by saying that a lot of enterprises, like, enterprise selling is tough.
Don't move like that, exactly. So you might, so the B2C is very up for disruption, right? Like a Canva can be replaced, the Figma can be replaced very quickly. But some tool that's very integrated into my workflow for an enterprise, that's like a very very different cup of
Yeah,
tea cup that we are talking about. Yeah.
yeah. Cool, awesome. We covered a lot of ground. Let me ask you, what is the roadmap? What does the future development look like for Dubverse and yourself?
Sure. I think, like I said, that this still, it's been 3 years, but it still feels like day one on multiple fronts. So I think the mission that we started with is still far ahead in the future for us to be solved. So we are in the language landscape primarily, and very early on we decided that we'll be on the video and the audio side, because we could already see that the text more or less is fading away from a content standpoint. Everybody is moving towards video. So that's basically our landscape that we operate in. So everything to do with languages, everything to do with video within the generative AI space is how I would say that's the larger three circles that we operate on, and that is where we continue to sort of build. So everything from a speech standpoint, I think the larger mission is to be able to build AI speakers for all Indian languages, sounding as authentic as the local speaker, as authentic as the real dialect that was spoken. I think that definitely remains the larger mission, and we keep building towards it.
Awesome. Sounds good, Anuja. Thank you for your time. Uh, a very enlightening view on AI and the way things are moving in India with the India AI mission, and obviously your endeavors with Dubverse. Good luck for everything you're building and for the future.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Vinny. Thanks for doing this. Every additional eye is always helpful for a early stage founder. So wherever we can spread our word is always worth spending time. And I think all the best with what's coming your way. I think great things ahead.
Thank you.